Hello everyone. Some people just want to watch the world burn, and apparently I'm one of them because I'm about to do my Tekken 7 Season 3 tier list. The Season 3 tier list is abject and very palpable darkness, and I'm scared, but we're gonna brave this challenge together. Normally I would just put a static image on the screen, but this time I want to try and construct my list live in the video, and that'll give me a chance to explain my thought process a little bit. Making a good tier list that people will be happy with is basically impossible because it's 50 controversial opinions on the screen at one time. You and I might disagree about your favorite character or your least favorite character, and if that upsets you, then I'm very sorry. I can't feel your feelings and think your thoughts as much as I would like to, but I can at least promise to try and be honest, and hopefully that's worth something. I think with Season 3, the interesting thing is not specific placements of specific characters, but the sort of general trends we can notice when the list is done, and I think that's going to be the point of the video, what we can learn when we look at it at the end. But first, we have to make it, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but we're going to start now. I have a template here that I found online. I didn't make it, somebody else did. Thank you so very much for making this. I'm assuming because it's made available for public use that it's okay for me to use it. And all I've done is I've added one more tier on top here because I want 6 tiers, I think, to separate the characters. I also want to get rid of this like ABC system because I think it's kind of vague. It's difficult to know what the letters mean. I want to get a little bit more specific, you know, with how the tiers relate to one another. I think I want to start with this second to top one, and this one, what should we call it? I'm going to call this one So Broken You Should Quit Tekken. That's a good name for this one. So basically what I mean is if a single character ends up this high, then the balance of the game is so whack that it's becoming competitively non-viable, and we have to seriously start thinking about what can be done about it. So hopefully not a single character will end up in this tier or this high. But as you can tell, there's an even higher tier one above, and this one we're just going to call Ferk Ledurk. And we can complete this tier right now. Only one character is going to end up in it. The most unethical thing Namco has done in the history of the development of this game. Complete travesty. And something that needs to change very soon, but shouldn't have been an issue in the first place. And then this tier is probably the most difficult one to name. I'm going to call it Broken and Average. If that makes sense. I know it doesn't. Basically what I mean is that these are characters that are very, very strong, but the average character in the game right now is extremely powerful. The power level is, I don't think we only need to measure it against other characters, but we also need to take into consideration the size of the life bar, the length of a round, the size of a stage, and things like that. And if you consider those things, the average character in Tekken right now is extremely, extremely strong. So this is where I think like the top tier characters in the game should end up in a reasonable balanced landscape, and there should only be a small handful of them at the most, but I have a feeling this is going to be a very populated tier, so I'm going to call it Broken and Average. And the big fat peace pipe I want us to smoke together right now is I'm going to start by placing one of my own favorite characters here right away. Zafina has below average move properties overall in my opinion. She has low damage, but she's able to compete at a completely different level because she has the best movement in the game. And other characters who are definitely going to go up here, I mean, no surprises, Dragunov is up here, as is Jin, for example, but they're definitely not going to be alone up here by the end. The tier below that, let's call it Goodish. So these are characters who are good, strong. This is where I think all the characters, this is like the level we should try and balance all characters towards. I think it's also going to be quite populated, but they're not standout strong like the characters in the tier above them. The bottom tier, what should we call this? Try and be sensitive. How about we call it masochism, because that's obviously what you're into if you still main a character in this tier. And then the one in between here, I think I just want to call viable. I feel like there are many characters in the game who they used to be really bad, or they were thought of as really bad, but then new things were developed or they were buffed in some way, and they were able to rise out of the bottom, absolute bottom tier. And this is, for example, where I place the bears. People might think that they go in the bottom tier. I always felt that they were underestimated. I think the running 1+2 is great. I think hunting bear works. I think down back 2 is a fantastic low. I think down forward 2-1 is like one of the best whiff punishers ever. So I think these characters are better than you would suppose. And this is also where I personally place Eliza right now. I've heard people say that she's like, top 10 in the game now. She went from bottom tier to like top 10 because they changed one of her lows to Moonglide 4. She has somewhat viable mix-ups from her stance, but not outside of her stance. It's enough to definitely make her stronger, and I think she's made it out of the bottom tier. I definitely don't think she belongs anywhere near the top, though. And then for the bottom masochism tier, we can just place Gigas here right away. No surprise. Dodoring has been doing really well with Gigas in tournament lately, but a very important thing that I notice when I watch him play is that when he's able to deal damage and do well, it's not because of the character. He's doing stuff like jumping hop kicks or clutch low parries in a row, universal tools that you could use with any character. He's just able to do it with Gigas. It's completely the player and not the character who's doing well. Dodoring is a genius, and this character is trash. I've played him a lot online recently because I'm excited about Gigas. I feel like he is going to get the biggest buffs he's ever had in Season 4 because Harada has been tweeting about, he's been talking to the development team saying you need to make this character stronger. So there's a mandate for this character to be stronger in Season 4 and something big might happen. But at the moment he is complete trash. Okay, so now we've established a bit of a landscape. Now we just have to start placing characters in here. So Broken, you should quit Tekken tier. This one is actually pretty easy to complete, in my opinion. We can do this, and now we're pretty much done. I think Akuma is a character where people always bring up his execution as being a mitigating factor. It is, but it also isn't. It is not a mitigating factor in terms of his brokenness or his strength. The character is way overpowered. It is a mitigating factor in the sense that because he's difficult to use, when you go online, when you play the game, you don't run into him often. You don't have to play against Akuma very often, and so it doesn't upset us as much. And that's a great thing. But the power level of the character when played at a decently high level is completely insane. It's been a balancing nightmare for Namco ever since he was released, but he definitely belongs up here. But I appreciate that because if you compare him to Fuckum Rum and Leroy, I mean, these are characters you can play using nothing but the contempt in your heart and one of your thumbs. And that's not true about Akuma, but he's still strong enough that he ends up in this tier. I'm going to play Gonryu in this tier. I'm going to play as Julia in this tier as well. Armor King is not that strong. He goes a little bit lower. Very cool character, very loved character. I kind of like Armor King, but many people have opinions on him as being like a little bit on the weak side. I don't think he's weak in an absolute sense, but he's weak in a relative sense. He's not as strong as many other characters who are a little bit too powerful. Marduk, for example. I'm going to place Negan in the Goodish tier. I think he has some seriously powerful move properties. He's just very vulnerable to good movement, and some of the better and more popular characters in the game right now are very good at that as well, which mitigates him a little bit. Noctis also goes in this tier. And then I think we can just start placing a lot of characters in this broken but average tier. I'm going to place Kazuya up here. In fact, I think all characters with the Mishima archetype end up in this one. Where's Jin? Regular Jin. Can't find him. We can place a Heihachi here for now. And this is... He's considered... Oh, I already placed Jin up here. That's why. Sorry. So Heihachi is considered to be like one of the weaker Mishimas, probably the weakest Mishima, and I can completely see that argument, but I think there's enough in there to still place him up here. I don't underestimate this character. I have a lot of respect for his power level, and especially now that we have the recovery buff to the electric, he has benefited from that as well, same as the others. It's just such a fantastic tool, provided you know how and when to do it, and you know, if you know how to do it really fast. But I think that this character is underestimated, even though he might be on the weaker side for the Mishimas. I think Shaheen goes in this tier. Fantastic character, great mix-ups, high damage, great lows, the slide mix-up, everything. Fantastic character. Does really well in tournament as well. Brian goes up here, as does Horong, Law, and Paul, and Steve. You can see that this tier is becoming very populated, and that's one of the issues I had a feeling we might notice as we make this. Anybody else? I think in this bottom tier, I want to place Miguel. I think he's extremely weak. They've given him buffs, but they are not the buffs he needs. They've made him made his rage drive better. It should always have been better. They made him better at like wall bouncing and stuff, which is cool and fun, and it's a buff, but it's not a step in the right direction. He needs other things. It's a very high risk character. He gets by on fantastic movement and decent damage, but he takes massive risks. If the opponent has really crisp reaction time and can really watch him, then they can pretty much shut him down. So I think this character is very weak. Lars is still down here. He's gotten so many buffs and so many changes, but he doesn't manage to claw his way out of a very low tier. Maybe next time. I don't know what it is. It's like almost difficult to explain because he just keeps getting things and he still doesn't work. Online, you can do well with him because you can mix orbitals with down back 4. Thing about both those moves is if you're playing against somebody, again, with good reaction time, who can really watch you and who can react to them in time, then they can completely nullify his entire mix-up, and now he can't do anything. And so it's I think that's what ends you up really in the bottom tier. It's like you have all these cool tools that can really win online and run through people, but if the opponent has the ability to react to what you do in time, and they can completely nullify your ability to play and mix, then this is where you end up, right? And that's used to be Elisa's problem, but because of Moonglide 4 being 18 frames to impact, I think it is so sort of unseeable, and the stance being quite accessible, she can now sort of mix and she can stay dangerous from a range, so she's gotten a little bit stronger in that way. I think Leo is down here, and it's another kind of strange pick, maybe because this used to be considered one of the best characters in the game. I think there's just a lot of like solid moves in the move list, but they are just solid. Very few things stand out as being really, really good. And then the other thing about Leo is some of the worst damage in the game. Wonky, strange, and uncomfortable combos that lead to very, very low damage. In the Season 3 update, they tried to put in a new combo filler here with some sparking hits and some chunky damage, which felt like exactly the right thing. It's the back 4 1+2, I think. It's used as a wall combo currently as well, but then that doesn't work for most of your standard launchers. You can do it after a hop kick, but even then it's inconsistent, which is so strange because it's like exactly what the character needs to push it in the right direction, but then executed so poorly that it ends up not doing what it had to. So sad, because Leo, I've said this many times, is one of the coolest and most interesting move lists in the game. There's a lot to love in there. A lot of classic Tekken stuff, you know, long range whiff punishing down forward 2, hop kick down forward 1, roll dash, and that fantastic while standing 11 frame Punisher, which is still the best in the game. So things going for this character, but it's still a weak character. I'm losing my voice, by the way. I'm sorry about that. It's not because I have the virus or anything. I was singing karaoke last night. Katarina is trash. This character is pretty much dead. My thoughts on her are basically she had image issues that made people dislike her so much that there was outcry for her to be changed, and the developers just kept neutering her until there was almost nothing left. Her hop kick was her whiff punisher, and because that led to really good damage, it was sort of a good thing for her because her movement is good. She can set up that whiff punish. She could use her fantastic down forward one to do that and set up counter hits. Then they nerfed her counter hits, they nerfed her hop kick range, they nerfed the frame data on her down forward one, and they just kept trying to improve these giant, big, very punishable lows, which is not the direction you want to push the character in. She has some new cool stuff, the counter hit Harrier 1 into guaranteed follow-ups and stuff like that, but this character is just one where the move list and everything is actually fine. You just need to give her some frame data back and improve her in that sense. She suffers from a complete lack of playstyle at the moment, especially, again, if the opponent can react in time. If they can see Toucan Tail, and even if they can launch Punish Toucan Tail, if they're playing a character who can do that, then you're in big trouble. And you're also very linear. I think Eddie is good-ish. I think Anna is somewhere in between these tiers. I'm going to play her in the place her in the viable tier. I think she's weak, but maybe a little bit stronger than these other characters. Maybe not, honestly. It's difficult to say. Her new Power Crush is really good, though. I think this is where she ends up, but I can definitely see the argument for her going at the bottom. Geese goes in broken but average. Lei is a masochism tier. He's the most masochism tier because you would only play this character because you have a love for this character. You have a loving relationship with him despite all the pain it causes you. King is broken but average. I think Lee actually goes all the way up in Goodish now. I think he used to be very weak, but I don't really think he is anymore. He was thought of as being really weak. I'm not sure he ever really was. I think this character was stronger than he was given credit for, but I think he has mix-ups, range, great wall carry and damage. It's a character who can really develop a playstyle and do things. It's not a character that you can just shut down by doing something specifically against him, but he doesn't have the kind of power as the characters in the tier above him either. So this is where I'd place him along with Bob, a character who has kept getting better, has some really cool combos and some fun stuff with him. Basically, the only reason I don't play a lot of Bob is I don't like wave dashing, so I play a Bob without the wave dash, but then that feels kind of like, if you're going to play your character and really enjoy it and like specialize in it, why don't you lean into those mechanics? So I either need to really develop a nice, fast, clean wave dash and really enjoy that when I play this character, or stay away. I'm staying away for now, but Bob is an amazing character. I really like. Kazumi is either broken but average or goodish. I'm going to go goodish. Might be controversial, but I think Season 2 was a much, much better version of this character than what we have right now, and I think that's why she's seen a lot less representation. She's also a character that suffers from some of the lowest damage in the game, along with like Leo. She has some of the worst damage for combos. Same thing for Yoshi. I think he goes in viable, but he might be lower. But there is some solidity to this character. Josie goes in goodish. I think she's sort of the poster child for this tier, so I'm just going to put her here because I think this is like, a character who has stuff, but nothing that stands out too much. Master Raven, viable or goodish? Probably goodish if you know what to do, but almost nobody does. Let's place her up here. I think that's right. Nina as well. Elisa is a difficult one because she's been mediocre for so long, and recently people really feel that she's getting a lot stronger. One of the best characters for movement, the chainsaws are becoming better. Her new Power Crush activates faster than most Power Crushes. My personal opinion on this is that this character has been mediocre for such a long time. And that's what people are used to. And now they've finally done enough that this character has become very respectable and good. It's not that she's suddenly extremely high tier. It's just that you have to respect her in a different way now. And adjusting to that, takes a little bit of time. And that's what people are reacting to. So I can honestly see an argument for her being only goodish. But so many people I trust are talking about her being extremely, extremely good right now. So I'm going to sort of lose to peer pressure, but I can also see it. The chainsaws are better and so on. So she's going to go up here. Claudio goes in goodish, unless you're talking about like cancerous online matches, then he's higher. I think Lily goes in goodish. I think Feng goes in goodish. I think Jack goes in goodish. I think Xiao Yu does as well, as does Asuka. She, along with like Armor King and Josie, are probably like, and Noctis. These are like the characters who are like, strong, solid, have a lot of stuff, but nothing that seems, completely overpowered or anything like that. And then Chloe's another difficult one. I think she's in masochism tier, but she's probably one of the best characters in masochism tier. She might go up here, maybe one lower. I'm going to place her down here because I hope Chloe players get buffs soon. I think she needs to be stronger. She has insane damage on a couple of specific launchers, but really, if this character is like California rolling and doing back turns, if you just walk, you can neutralize so much of it, and she ends up in trouble. So I think I'm pretty happy with this. If I sat here and thought more about it, certain characters might change. I don't think this is too controversial or too strange, but maybe you disagree. But yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting. If you look at this, you can see that it's very top heavy. The most populated tier is a tier that I think is a power level that is a little bit too high. But another really interesting thing that I want to point out about this is if you look at this list and you start looking for DLC characters, you will find them all near the top. If you look at Season 3 characters, you find them all very near the top. You have Ram, Leroy, Zafina, Gonryu. I mean, the more recent a character is, the more likely it seems to me that it ends up in the... near the top of the list, with notable exceptions, of course, Akuma, for example. But I think if you are a base roster character, it seems you are more likely to be low or even masochism tier, and if you are Season 3 DLC, you're very likely to be near the top. And this is the sort of trend of power creep that has becoming more and more severe, but really went to a completely different level and became ridiculous in Season 3. And so Season 4 is where this definitely needs to change in a big way for this game to remain sustainable. And that's sort of the point I want to make when I make a list like this. I know there are going to be comments where, like, you know, you're completely wrong about this specific character, and maybe I am, but I think we can agree on these two trends. It's top heavy and DLC characters are generally too strong. I want combo damage to go down, and I want the average power level to go down. That's difficult to do, probably not something that we can hope for. We can't nerf half the roster in a new season. We have to give them new stuff. We have to get people excited about playing the game, but the absolute strongest characters need to be brought down, and then we need to sort of at least have a landscape where the characters are relative to one another, at least, maybe not in absolute terms, but relative to one another, as fair as possible. I think that would be great, so that anybody can play and pick whatever character they feel a personal connection to for whatever reason, whether it is Leroy, Akuma, Ram, or Gigas, or, you know, any other character, and feel good about that choice and feel like they are fighting in a marketplace of moves where they can compete. That's going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to your comments. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys again very soon.